let's paint this up, get some splash art. Man, this art is so cool. So she's got like a shield and like a hammer and stuff. And you got some Viking bros in the back. All right, we're gonna draw this up. This is gonna be sick. Let's just move her over there. Full screen up some paint and get to work. Yo, if I just draw a shield here, huh? Now I'm thinking with portals, and I just gotta erase it. I erased the wrong parts too. Oh, we're in for betting for a pound. There's no going back on this. Not gonna look good. I know it doesn't show it in there, but we're gonna give her feet. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Magnifique. Ugh. A face only a mother could love. Give her a little cape action. It's not. Yeah, you know what? I'd like to see you do better. No, please don't show me any better than this. My entire worldview is based off the idea that I'm a fantastic MS Paint artist. Here's the real secret: we got to draw some Viking bros in the background. Oh no, we gotta do our trick again to give him the shield. Boom, slamming. Wait, he's the Viking, so he's got a big like orange beard. Dude, I wish I had an orange beard. I would look so cool if I had an orange beard. Oh, but his mouth is open. His mouth is open in a battle roar. He is so proud of us for making this joke. God, this took so long. All my others were so fast. All right, and now for the piece de resistance. Yeah, I took like 7 years of art school to make that. Hello everyone, I am back with another Walter Makes a Deck video. So, in this one, I've had this idea for a while. I've been watching Viking TV shows for Halloween. I went as a Viking. I just think like the whole culture is like really cool, and it's been a lot in modern media lately. We saw at the Kaldheim set, there's like a bunch of cards that came out, and I really just want to make like a Viking tribal deck. The problem is they suck. Well, they don't suck, but like if we go and we look at the Kaldheim commanders, they just don't really fit with what I'm trying to do. They're either like 5 colors, or they're colors I don't want to run, or they don't really like make Vikings. But this card does. Maja, Bretagard, Protector actually makes Vikings. So she's a 5-mana 2/3. She's green and white. She gives all your creatures +1/+1, and whenever you landfall, you make a 1/1 white human warrior token. And if you actually go look her up on Scryfall, her human warrior tokens are like actually just Vikings. They even have like little Viking houses behind them. So like I can literally make a Viking deck, and it can be a landfall deck. And it's green and white, which are very like childhood enjoyable colors. So I think this is gonna be like a very simple deck. And we're gonna focus on the main elements of this card. So the first one, all creatures get +1, other creatures get +1/+1, is an anthem. So this deck is gonna be full of stuff that just gives all our creatures +1/+1. So we're gonna make like little humans, and they're just gonna become 5/5s and stuff like that. The second thing is whenever a land enters, do something. So it's a landfall trigger. So our second thing is going to be, we're going to have a lot of ramp because we're in green, and we're going to have a lot of sweet landfall creatures. And then the third thing is you make a human warrior token. So anything that's good with tokens is generally going to be good. Anything that's good with humans is going to be good. Maybe things with warriors. So those are the 3 things we're looking for as we dive into building this deck. All right, so now we're over on Archidekt, and we're going to start putting the pieces into our deck. So the first thing we're going to add is our commander here. Maja, Bretagard, Protector. We throw her in the commander spot over here. You can even change her art. We'll make sure she's got that sweet art. Yeah, that's the one we want. Heck yeah. Boss. Also, this card's an uncommon, so our deck's just going to be super meme. The first thing we're going to want to add is we're going to want to add anthems. So stuff like Glorious Anthem is basically where we get this name from, and it's a type of card that just stays in play and gives all our creatures +1/+1. Glorious Anthem is kind of a bad one, though. As power creep has gone on, there have been better ones printed and things that give even more than +1/+1. And this is something actually that white and green are pretty good at doing. So I've done a little search here in Scryfall. So we're looking for cards where our commander is green and white, gives +1/+1, and it says creatures you control get. And then I also added this little bit. It's minus Oracle text. So if we don't have this, we'll get a search of 160 cards. But if we do have this search, we're only getting 74 because it's removing end of turn is what I'm trying to remove with it. So it's removing anything that's going to go away at the end of something. And then sort-wise, we're going to sort this by mana value. Again, lower mana cards are the ones you typically want for Commander unless they're like big windmill cards, like these Haymaker cards. So already, Honor of the Pure. So this is 2 mana, white creatures +1/+1. Our commander makes white humans, so we're going to go ahead and lean into that. It's literally just better than Glorious Anthem in this deck. If we lean into that. Rally the Rakes is another one. It's also, you know, this could be considered a pet card if it's not strong enough, but it's also Viking themed. It is from the same set, and it works really well with our commander. And then we just kind of keep going and see if there's any other stuff that we can find here that's interesting. Another one that's cheaper that I'm thinking of while we're here is Intangible Virtue. This one didn't come up on our search because it says token. It says creature tokens you control, but it's another just like a mainstay card of token decks. Modern decks have been built around this enchantment before. Not necessarily good ones, but they have. We're at 5 mana, so something it's 5 mana or more has to be really good for it to be in our deck. Like Eldrazi Monument is. Gives them +1/+1 flying and indestructible. The downside is we have to sack a creature. Good thing every turn we play a land and we make one. So yeah, Eldrazi Monument. These are going to be some flying Vikings, more like Valkyries, I suppose, in that case. There's our commander, Maja. Mirari's Wake is a solid card. This is going to do double duty for us. We're getting +1/+1, and our lands tap for extra. It's also just an awesome card, art-wise, especially we can select. If you happen to have the OG art from Judgment, this card just looks sweet. So yeah, those are some good ones. Another one to consider in here would be Vanquisher's Banner, but again, it's on cast we draw a card, so it's not going to be super strong. Cage Sun doubles our mana, but it's 6 mana for +1/+1. We're getting 5 mana for +1/+1 and double mana, so Cage Sun is kind of worse. Immortal Sun's kind of an aggressive card. It's also like $20 or something. So let's refine this a bit. Let's check out +2/+2. Creatures you control get +2/+2. Ah, here we go. This gives commander creatures, boom, boom, artifact creatures, Dictate of Heliod. 5 mana +2/+2. This is a good, just like a straight upgrade from something else that we could do at this mana slot. So we can go ahead and throw that in for now. It's not a bad card. Elshnorn's another one to consider. It is like pretty aggressive though. And if our opponents ever gain control of this, our entire board dies. So Elshnorn might not be as good as you'd normally think in a deck like this. We'll also just do +3/+3, see if there's anything out here. Oh, Collective Blessing. Literally in our colors, +3/+3. It's a very meme card, but resolve this, and whenever you play land, you make a 5/5 with our uncommon commander, which is pretty funny. So, yeah. I think we're just going to run the Collective Blessing over the Dictate of Heliod. But rather than trash it, we'll just throw it into our Maybe board, which is a nice feature here inside Archidekt, is you can just preserve those cards in the potential category, and it will not add them to your deck size. So those are all the good ones there. Another one, which you would find if you went up to +5/+5, is Beastmaster's Ascension. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets a counter. If you get up to 7 counters, it gives your board +5/+5 permanently. It's a degenerate card with our amount of tokens. It's also very funny. These are tigers, sadly, and not Valkyries, but I mean, you know, we could put little like flying things on their head, and they'd be totally fine. So we're definitely gonna add Beastmaster Ascension. Shh, no one's paying attention to the art except you, Walter. There is a new guy that just got printed. I think his name is Kyler. Kyler, like this. Yeah. So whenever a human enters the battlefield under control, he gets a counter, and other humans get +1/+1 for each counter on him. So this guy, if we have a situation where he's in play and our commander's in play, we play a land. The land enters, it makes a human. The human triggers Kyler. He gets a +1/+1 counter. All humans get +1/+1. So with just one land play in our commander, this gives our board +1/+1. And every land we play after that is a stacking buff. This card is insane in human decks, and I think it would do really well in here. It'll also make people beg the question, why isn't Kyler your commander? Which is always fun. So those are some decent anthems from now. We can see if we can find more. Oh, +1/+1 counters. Another solid option here is Cathar's Crusade. This says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, everything gets +1/+1. That's gonna, or yeah, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So this is just a stacking anthem. And with the amount of lands we'll be ultimately playing, we will get some solid value out of this card. So yeah, that's a good way to start there. And now the next thing to consider with our commander is we're transitioning from the top line, the anthem line, to whenever a land enters the battlefield. So we're going to want a ton of ramp. So we need to make a search for ramp. All right, so here's the search I've come up with. Commander again, white, green, and we're searching for a land and putting it onto the battlefield. So stuff like rampant growth is a clear example of this. And I want to have the CMC greater than 0 here, because if we don't, it's going to come up with like fetch lands and stuff, because they have a CMC of 0 and they have that language. So scrolling through here, we're just looking for stuff that's going to be a ramp card for us. There's Farseek right there. And I know all of these, but I figured that it'll be good practice for anyone that's like brewing their own decks and hasn't done a lot with green, how you're going to find ramp cards, aside from just going online and typing in like big search of ramp cards. But Farseek is one of 4 spells that does this. There's Farseek, Edge of Autumn, 3 visits, Sakura Tribe Elder, and Nature's Lore. So there's actually 5, or 6 if you consider Into the North. Those are the 2 CMC ones, which are the ones that typically you're going to want to include in your deck. So 2 mana, search your deck for land, put it into play, with some restrictions. And the cool thing about Into the North here is that it's like, it's kind of a meme card, because it forces you to run all snow-covered basics, and this basically is just another rampant growth. But in this deck specifically, because we're doing, like, Viking themed, it's actually kind of on theme for us to all have snow-covered lands, so I'm totally on board with Into the North. A-okay in my book. There's also Kalani Heart Expedition, which is cool because it can trigger enter the battlefields for us later. Let's go through it real quick. It's 2 mana, it's an enchantment. It says whenever you play a land, you put a counter on it. When you have 3 or more counters, you sacrifice it, and you get to search for 2 basics and put them into play. So it's like a delayed ramp spell, but the nice thing about it in landfall decks is you can control when it goes off. So you can have pretty explosive turns where you sack it at the end of someone's turn, trigger a couple of landfalls, and then on your upkeep, you have some tokens in play, and those can attack on that turn. You kind of evade a Wrath of God type effect because you created them at the end of your opponent's turn rather than on your own turn. So that's definitely one for us to consider. As we move into the 3 mana range, it's harder to find. Let me parse this a different way. As you move into the 3 mana range with ramp spells, it's harder to justify their spot in the deck over other cards. Ideally, you want to be playing your ramp on turn 2, and then on turn 3, you're able to cast 4 mana spells, or like maybe 2 more ramp spells. Something like Cultivate is nice in a multicolor deck because it allows you to have only green and search for, let's say, blue and black if you're running a 3-color deck. But in our list, where we're just running 2 colors, and one of them is green, we have very powerful ramp abilities, and Cultivate just is kind of weaker. If we want to spend 3 mana, we should be getting more than 2 lands, 1 into play tapped, 1 into hand. If we want to spend 3 mana for lands, we should be considering Harrow, which is an instant that you sacrifice a land, but it gets 2 of them into play, because that's going to give us double enter the battlefield triggers. So something like Harrow would be stronger than Cultivate in this list. Oh yeah, there's Springbloom Druid, which is Harrow as a creature. So that's definitely it. And then here it is, Roiling Regrowth. Sack a land, search for 2 basics, and put it on battlefield tapped. This is worse because Harrow comes into play untapped, but as far as getting our landfall triggers, it might be worth considering later on. Also in the 3 mana range, we could run something weird like Harvest Season. Harvest Season is a solid card in like elf decks or other decks where your creatures are tapping a lot. You search for X basics corrects the amount of tapped creatures you control and put them into play. So in order for this to be good, you need to have 2 tapped creatures. Then you're spending 3 mana to get 2 lands, and it's a solid deal. If you only have 1 creature or 0 creatures, this card is bad. However, with us, we're making all these little 1/1 tokens, and we're attacking with them. So I think Harvest Season could be a fun card for us to throw in. Knight of the Reliquary is a really, really fun card. It's green, white, and a colorless for a 2/2, and it gets +1/+1 for each land card in our graveyard. And the really cool thing about it is we can tap him to sack a forest or a plains. This will work for our dual lands, and it will work for our snow-covered basics, which we're going to run. And we search for any land and put it into play. So this guarantees a landfall trigger every turn. It could even guarantee 2 landfall triggers, because we can tap him to sack a land, getting a fetch land, 1 landfall trigger, and then crack that fetch land for another land, 2 landfall triggers. So now the Reliquary is fantastic, and it's kind of one of the few rewards we get for playing a landfall deck that has white, because it's not really what that color does a lot. And they have some neat stuff. As we move down into the 4 mana range, there are some more explosive cards, and I'll mention a couple of them, but I don't think we're going to consider them. Scapeshift is really solid in landfall decks. If you're making a deck that's very, honestly powerful, like Scapeshift is a very powerful card. You basically sack 4 mana, sack any amount of lands, and put that many lands from your deck into play. They can be any lands. This is used in Modern to sack all of your lands and go get Valakut and Mountains, and then just kill people with Valakut triggers. It's a deck in Modern. I don't know how competitive is it anymore, but it's really nice for getting more than 1 landfall trigger a turn. This deck is split between tokens, landfall, and anthems, so I don't really want to go all in on it. Also, it's kind of a good card, and this deck's, again, not like in the really strong power level, and something like Scapeshift is just going to come out of nowhere and just like windmill slam our opponents to the ground. We don't necessarily want to do that with this deck. I really like Tempt with Discovery. It's a fantastic card. The downside with Tempt with Discovery is my entire playgroup no longer gives me lands with it. If you're playing in a playgroup, though, that's like more friendly, or you're playing with people that mess up their land base and consistently need land, Tempt with Discovery is awesome. You spend 4 mana, you get to search your deck for any land, put it into play, and then each opponent can choose to do that. If they do, you get to do it again. If no one accepts your offer, it's not a terrible card. It's 4 mana, get any 1 land out of your deck. Usually can get something pretty good. If 1 person accepts your offer, it's a fantastic card. 4 mana, get any 2 lands, put them into play is very solid. Hour of Promise is 5 mana, just right here, and it gets you any 2 lands. So 4 mana, any 2 lands is strictly better. And typically, if 1 person does the deal, everyone at the table is forced to do the deal, and then you just get accelerated really far ahead. But again, my playgroup just doesn't let me get lands with this anymore. So I unfortunately can't play it until my playgroup gets stupider. So maybe one day. Boundless Realms is at the top end of these spells. It's 7 mana. You search your deck for X basics and put them into play, where X is the amount you already have. So basically doubles your amount of lands. This is awesome for a bunch of landfall triggers, and if someone doesn't destroy all lands or deal with the fact that you now have double mana, you probably win the game. That said, this only gets basics. We're running 2 colors, and I'm going to want to run a bunch of cool utility lands because we have Knight of the Reliquary. So this becomes worse for us. Fortunately, Commander Legends presented us with its big daddy, Reshape the Earth. This spell is absurd. This spell is 9 mana. You search your deck for any 10 lands and put them into play. This card probably wins you the game if it resolves, because you can get Field of the Dead and 9 other lands, and you make 10 zombies. If our commander's out, we make 10 zombies, 10 humans. They all get +1/+1. We present 50 power or something. Pass turn. Your opponents have to board wipe. If they don't, you just kill them. Reshape the Earth is an exceptionally strong card, so we'll throw that in. It's also super funny. It just feels really good playing green and resolving 9 mana win the game cards periodically, so we'll throw that in there. In terms of other stuff to consider that this search wouldn't find, there are cards that search specifically for land types. So we could type in forest, and this will now pull up things that get you specifically forest. Here we see Nature's Lore and 3 Visits, which I knew of from before but weren't included on our search. A couple of 3 mana cards that get us lands, and then Skyshroud Claim, which is the other one we'll want to include here. Skyshroud Claim is 4 mana. You search your deck for any 2 forests and put them onto the battlefield. It specifically does not say tapped. It also specifically says forests. You can get dual lands with this if they have the forest type. So this card is really good in 2 color. It's even better in 3 or more colors if you have green. So Skyshroud Claim is a fantastic card. And if you're just going to run one of these more expensive ones, Skyshroud Claim is definitely the one to do because it's just the best one. Other stuff for us to look at, modifying our search a little bit. Extra land plays are going to be valuable to us, so we can change this a little bit. So mixing this up a little bit, now our search is white-green, additional land play. It's out of order, but exploration is exactly what we're looking for. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Fantastic. So we'll grab exploration. Druid class is the poor man's version of exploration. Exploration is literally just a better card, but it is mondo expensive. It's $20, whereas Druid class is 50 cents. and it's in AFR, so like people are using them as toilet paper, and you can just go pick one up from the local card shop trash can. If you don't have the money for exploration, I do have the money for exploration, and I'm gonna run it. But you know, druid class would be like, all right if I didn't. A little further down, Azusa Lost But Seeking. This card used to be like the gold standard, the pinnacle, the best thing you could do for extra land plays. Dryad of the Elysian Grove is now kind of like outclassing it, because for the same mana, you get literally double the stats. Instead of being a 1/2, it's a 2/4, which is pretty huge. And it lets your lands tap for any color. And unless you're doing like a modern deck where you're trying to like combo off, or you're doing something a little more aggressive, or you're trying to get to like a 10 mana spell as quickly as possible, like you can make an Azusa EDH deck and just fill it full of Eldrazi and just try to get as much mana as possible. Dryad of the Elysian Grove is typically better. You might have one turn where you want to play 2 lands, and you know you have Dryad and you can only play 1 extra instead. But in every other situation, I think Dryad of the Elysian Grove is better, which is why Dryad of the Elysian Grove is more expensive, of course. So we'll get that guy in here. Further down, we have like just worse versions of those cards. Wayward Sawtooth has a better stat block, but it can't attack or block, and you can only play 1 extra land. Like Dryad's just better, and Azusa is just better than Wayward Sawtooth. If you're running a deck that needs to hit as many land drops as possible a turn, you would run all of these. We're not really running that, because again, landfall is just 1/3 of our wedge that we're trying to do here. So we're just going to run kind of like the better version of them. And then my favorite of all these effects is Oracle Moldiah. If you're playing against someone and they play Oracle Moldiah and you don't kill it, you're just playing Magic incorrectly. So make sure that you're trying to do that. This is a 4-mana 2/2, and when it's in play, that person plays with the top card of their library revealed, and if it's a land, they can play it. So this allows them to effectively be drawing that card and playing it, because they now don't have to draw a land, and it goes into play, and they get something else on top to get later. Also, it gives you an extra land play. Like, if it already wasn't good, it's even better. The last thing for us to look at is mana rocks. You just change our wording a little bit, and we throw artifact in the top line. So something people don't necessarily know, you can do all sorts of wacky stuff with the search here. But if you do a bracket, it's so I have like Oracle text bracket G. That means it's going to pull up any card that has the green magic symbol. So yeah, we're going to grab Selesnya Signet and Talisman of Unity is the other one. I don't really want to take damage, and we're in green. We have lots of ramp, but we'll grab Selesnya Signet, obviously, for anyone that's been playing for a while. Like, I don't even know why I did this search, but just to like, you know, and whatever. So I had Selesnya Signet. We'll go ahead and add Arcane Signet, and we'll add Soul Ring, because like you can't play Commander without Soul Ring. It's not even a 100 card format, it's a 99 format with Soul Ring. It's like featuring Soul Ring at this point. So we've got a pretty good basis for our ramp right now. The other thing we might want to consider is getting our lands out of our graveyard, because we have a couple of effects that are going to be sacrificing our lands to get value. So things that put lands from our graveyard into play are good. So again, we can just do O land, O graveyard, and see. 95 cards. Let's refine this a bit. Alright, so we've refined it a little bit. We've made our CMC greater than 0, so it cuts out lands, and we've added battlefield. So something involving your graveyard, involving lands, involving the battlefield. We're looking for stuff that puts our lands from our graveyard into play. I already know the answers to this question, but just to show you guys what the search is. These cards are kind of meh. This is an interesting one, Planar Birth. I've seen a couple of decks with it. We're not going to use it in ours because we're going to have too many non-basics, but it's 2 mana for a sorcery to put all basics from all graveyards into play under their owner's control. Pretty cool card. We're going to be running non-basics though, and we don't really necessarily want to help our opponents out, so we'll scrap that one. But just a little further down, we've got World Shaper and Splendid Reclamation. Both these cards are fantastic. Splendid Reclamation is a sorcery. You just put all your lands from your graveyard into play tapped. It also just got reprinted, so it went from being like a 50-cent card to being a 15-cent card. It's still really good. The other one is World Shaper, which is the exact same effect, but it's stapled onto a creature, and when the creature dies, you get that effect. Also, when that creature attacks, you mill cards. Typically, I would almost rather always have the creature version of a spell than the spell version of a spell, because we get a body attached to it, so there's situations where that could be useful. We're also running anthems, so like a 4-mana 3/3 isn't bad in our deck. Also, if we have any sort of graveyard recursion, which we'll have a little bit of, or if our opponents are doing an effect where all the graveyards come back into play under their owner's control, which are present in Commander, something like World Shaper is going to get reoccurring value, whereas green-white is not going to have a lot of ways to get a sorcery back. So we're going to include World Shaper, but not Splendid Reclamation. All right, that's good for now. Let's move on to the third part of our trifecta, which is tokens. So now we're going to look for all sorts of stuff. We're going to look for all sorts of stuff that creates tokens. So we're going to have to refine this search a little bit, but it's a good thing because it pulls up our Field of the Dead, which we definitely want. Field of the Dead is a land, comes into play tapped, and if you have 7 or more lands with different names, whenever a land comes into play, you make a zombie. I don't really know the Viking thematicness of this. We maybe go with like a Game of Thrones theme and be like, oh, they're like the Frozen Walkers or whatever. I don't watch Game of Thrones. But you know, this could be like Hell. HEL is like opened up and like the disquiet spirits of the dead are clambering out. I don't give a shit. It makes zombies. It's a really good card, and we're making a landfall deck. We're gonna include it. So I just had a stroke of genius here. Rather than trying to find a search that would be like really hard to like parse to find tokens, we can just go to EDHrec, which is a fantastic website that scrapes together data from a bunch of other deck lists that people post, and it collates them into information that we can parse. So we're going to look here at their themes. We're just going to go down to the tokens theme. Boom. Here's the different color combinations. There's Selesnya. We're going to click on Selesnya, and we're just going to go down here, and we're going to view them as cards, and we're just going to pick and choose like the best tokens, the best token cards that exist, and throw them in our deck. Boom! Kamal Heart of Croja. This card is sweet, and our search from before wouldn't have found him based off of the way we had it worded, because this is only until end of turn, but it gives our creatures at the start of combat +3/+3 in trample, so it overruns them every turn, and he can turn lands into creatures, which is really cool. Also, it's Kamal. If anyone played like back in like Odyssey and stuff, Odyssey Black, Kamal was the man. Definitely grab him. Rite of Harmony. It's a 2-mana instant with flashback. Whenever a creature or enchantment, screw that. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control this turn, draw a card. This reads play a land, draw a card. We have just assembled our makeshift Voltron of the Simic Commander, Tatyova Benthic Druid. We don't gain life, but we make a 1/1 and we draw a card. And we did it in green-white with an uncommon and what? A 99-cent rare from the new set. Perfect. This is definitely a Walter deck. Ooh, Adeline Resplendent Cathar. This is another new card. Oh, they're all listed under new cards, dude. I'm so fucking smart today. 3 mana for a star 4. She's a human. Her power is equal to the amount of creatures we control, and whenever she attacks, she makes a human that's tapped and attacking for each player we're attacking. This is pretty good in our deck because we're antheming out. Also, this combo is really, really hard with that Kyler we added before, which is the guy who puts a +1/+1 counter on himself whenever a human comes into play. So if she attacks, he gets like 3 +1/+1 counters, and then it just gets out of control. There's no way that our opponents let us have this board state for more than like 1 turn revolution, and there's no reason we need it for more than 1 turn revolution because we're going to kill them all with it. So we're definitely throwing Adeline Resplendent Cathar in here. Sidebar, I've been killed by this card numerous times in Commander since it's come out. And now we're just hearing some high synergy cards. There's our Intangible Virtue that we ended before. Hour of Reckoning is a board wipe that destroys all non-token creatures, so that's definitely one to get. Stuff that says Populate, there's a handful of cards here. Sundering Growth, Growing Rights, Rootborn Defenses, all these say Populate. Our tokens are 1/1s. Populating 1/1s is not an effective use of Populate. We'll replace Populate with just stuff that makes tokens or more Anthem effects in our deck. Second Harvest is cool because it's making a token that's a copy of each token we control. It might wind up on the chopping block, but we'll throw it in for now. Anointed Procession and Parallel Lives, these are the same card. They're sadly very expensive for no apparent reason. One is $43 and the other is $60 on Card Kingdom. Good lord. These are 4-mana enchantments that say if you would make a token, make twice that many instead. Pretty boring card. But we are making a token deck, and we want the best stuff for our token deck. So we'll throw those in there, but if they're not in your budget and you want to make this deck, like, I don't know, complain at Morrow and tell him that these need to be reprinted in the next Secret Lair Anointed Parallel Lives Procession. All right, this is the stuff I was actually looking for. March of the Multitudes, 3 mana and X. It's an instant that makes X 1/1 soldier creature tokens with lifelink. It also has Convoke, so we can tap our existing tokens to cast this. It's also instant speed, so we can tap out and do it at the end of the turn right before us, and then untap with a bunch of tokens that can attack that all have lifelink. This card also combos really well with Kyler. They're soldiers. Whew, never mind. Good. It'll stay nice and cheap, and we'll run it, and no one else will. It's our secret tech. Let's go. There's our Cathar's Crusade, and here we go. Avenger of Zendikar, Rampaging Baloth. We didn't see these before because we didn't do a keyword search for landfall. So let's just go back and do that and find our own stuff rather than just pick what other people have already picked. Scoot Swarm. Oh my gosh, this is a 3 mana 1/1. Whenever you make a land, it makes a 1/1. But if you have 6 or more lands, it just makes a copy of Scoot Swarm. So you have 6 lands and a Scoot Swarm, and you play a land. You have 2 Scoot Swarms, you play a land. You have 4 Scoot Swarms, you play a land. You have 8 Scoot Swarms, you play land. I don't have enough fingers, but you see the problem for our opponents if this card is not killed. Tireless Provisioner is part of this cycle that they've invented that involves 2 cards, which is just Tireless Tracker and this one. This one, whenever land comes into play, you make a treasure, which is like a reserve floating mana, so it's a little better than Lotus Cobra, but it costs 1 more mana, so in that regard it's a little worse. And then the other option is you make a food token. Don't ever pick that option. But this card just makes me think of the actual card that we want to include here, which is Tireless Tracker, which is whenever you make a land, you make a clue. Clues are card draw. We're playing white. Apparently that's not something we do well, so we should probably include this card. And the reason we didn't find Tireless Tracker, it wasn't because my search was fallible. It was because this was printed in a set that didn't have the landfall keyword. It literally could be keyworded to landfall. They've just not chosen to do it. So screw you, I guess. Paneria Angel. Whenever you landfall, you make a white bird token. So now we can have birds to go with our humans. Fantastic. This is also like, you get to play this stuff. Paneria Angel is like a $2 card? This card is insane. It's a 4 mana 3/3 flyer that makes 1/1s. I think this doesn't see play because nobody really makes white landfall decks. But this card's pretty good. Felidar Retreat is also very, very good. This sees a lot of play in like the 4-color Omnath decks. And it is effectively an anthem for us because whenever we landfall, we can put a +1/+1 counter on all of our creatures, or we can just make a 2/2 if we don't want to do that. So Felidar Retreat definitely goes in. Oh, Admonition Angel. This is another sweet card that you just don't see because it's in white. 6 mana 6/6 flyer. Whenever you landfall, exile a non-land permanent. They get them back when Admonition Angel dies. This is Oblivion Ring. Whenever you landfall, Oblivion Ring. This card is fantastic. We get to play that. Wait, it does? Oh, no way. Oh, heck yes! It has this sweet, where, oh my god, I'm so dumb. Secret Lair one? Yeah! This looks sick. Yeah, we definitely want to try and get that version for this deck. It's also kind of like Valkyrie themed almost. Look at that. That's kind of like, that could be a Norse thing. I don't know. I'm not Norse. I'm Italiano. Rampaging Baloth makes a 4/4 beast. This card's a house. We definitely want to consider him. And Avenger of Zendikar. All praise to the Avenger of Zendikar. This is like the amount of games that Avenger of Zendikar has just ended in my store is so high. People burn out. They use all their removal and all the other things. And then some guy with like a precon resolves an Avenger of Zendikar and nobody has anything. He just attacks for 20 a couple of times and the game's over. Avenger of Zendikar is really good. In this deck especially, it's even better because our commander anthems those tokens as well. So Avenger definitely goes in. Another thing someone just suggested to me is Divine Visitation. This is a really cool card. It's also pretty, it could be pretty on theme for us. So this is a 5 mana enchantment, and whenever you make a token, instead it's a 4/4 angel. with flying. So we make a human. No, it's just an angel. This is literally like the Valkyries, right? Like our warriors have died, and now we're just in Valhalla, and like whenever we play land, we just get a Valkyrie. This card is choice. This might be like the best flavor win for our deck of all time, is to have a Divine Visitation. So fantastic suggestion. Thank you very much. Click back here really quick to the themes. Camaraderie is 6 mana. It's a sorcery. Gain X, draw X, or X is the amount of creatures you control. Very solid. It also just happens to give our creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. Don't really care about that. Gain X life, draw X cards, or X is the amount of creatures we control is really strong in our deck. So we're going to throw that in there. And then the lower mana version of that is Shamanic Revelation. So we'll add both of those. Shamanic Revelation. This came out in Fate Reforged originally. It's 5 mana, draw a card for each creature you control. And then if you have Ferocious, you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. This isn't that hard for us. If we have 1 or 2 Anthem effects and our commander, or just like the +3/+3, all of our or the +3/+3 enchantment, all of our creatures will trigger Ferocious and we'll gain a ton of life. We'll throw that in there for sure. Also, as we're looking into draw, we can come back here to our landfall. Seer's Sundial, it's a 4 mana artifact. Landfall, you can pay 2 mana to draw a card. This is effectively doing the same thing Tireless Tracker is doing in a worse way. Tireless Tracker is putting that card draw into a capsule. It's the clue token. We can crack it whenever we want. This you kind of have to crack immediately, but it's the same amount of mana per card draw. And again, we're in white. You kind of got to do what you got to do to draw cards. So we've got kind of the bones of our deck put together now. Let's go ahead and organize these into some piles. I'll do some quick editing and it'll all be done. I have to like pause the stream or something. All right, so we're back. Magic. We've made some custom categories here. We've got our anthems, we've got our tokens, we've got our ramp. Those are the 3 things we were building towards, and it's no surprise we have like at least 10 cards in every category, except for anthems. What's going on here? We need 1 more anthem? I don't know. We'll find one later. Anyway, for our draw and our removal, we want to get these up to 10 cards. When you make a commander deck, you kind of just want to start from base of having 10 cards that draw you cards, 10 cards that remove things. Probably more removal, honestly, if you like want to get more towards the competitive side of things. But for our purposes, 10 removal cards would be fine. We also are in white, so we get to play the really good removal stuff. So let's do a search for that removal. Commanders, 2-color, Selesnya. And we can scroll down here and we can see Selesnya staples. And these are going to be the most played cards in any Selesnya deck. And for the most part, this is going to be removal and ramp in the instant slot. Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, Beast Within. Boom. Exile target creature, destroy target permanent, exile target creature. In. Also included here, we've got Eladamri's Call. This is effectively a draw spell for us. It would let us search our deck for a creature and put it into our hand and shuffle our library. We don't really care about that. Generous Gift. Destroy a creature. Destroy anything, they get an elephant. This is the white, like, time-shifted version of Beast Within. It is, in fact, strictly better because it's a white card that gives someone a green elephant. It could have very easily given them a white elephant, but as we've learned in recent months, I don't know, something about how Arena's bad. Eternal Witness, this is just like a staple card. Probably just have Eternal Witness in every deck that's running green. It's a body that gets a card from your graveyard back. It gets any card back, so it's effectively like draw or ramp, because you can get back a fetch land, or it gets you a new card. So Eternal Witness is solid. Aura Shards. Here we go. This is a 3-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield or control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's a good thing it says may, because otherwise we'd have to ultimately destroy the Aura Shards when it's the only thing left. But this now reads Landfall. Destroy target artifact or enchantment when our commander's in play. So definitely running Aura Shards. As for Sentinel, this is like some card draw in white. It's kind of stacksy. I don't know. Not necessarily stacksy. It's typically compared to like a Rhystic Study effect. It's definitely worse. It's only once per turn. It's only on non-creature spells. It's also like $20. It's $20. Jeez, yeah, we don't want that card. Catilda Dawnheart Prime. Human creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any of this creature's colors. Sure. We'll throw in Catilda. We're also going to throw in Cryptolith Rite, which is the enchantment version of this. So Cryptolith Rite is fantastic for us. And Catilda's kind of just like a slightly worse version of it. But basically, this turns our lands into 2 mana. right? So with our commander, we play a land, we get a token. The land taps for mana. Now with Cryptolith, that creature taps for mana, but we do have to wait a turn. Cryptolith fantastic. And again, it's just like another card that if we play it and our opponents don't deal with it, probably going to run away with the game a little bit. So like Sylvan Library is just an undisputedly good card. If you had $42.99 and had infinite money, Sylvan Library would probably go in every green deck you would ever make. In our list, I don't think we necessarily need it. Again, this is also kind of like a more underpowered thing. Also, it's a library, and like Vikings probably didn't read. They were too busy like braiding their beards or something. I don't know. Or like sailing boats. Is there like a boat library card that draws those cards? Probably not. Oh, I'm good this came up. So Skull Clamp is a card that you would almost always put, like just by default. If you have a card that says make a 1/1 and it's your commander, you run Skull Clamp, right? Our commander makes 2/2s. It says it makes 1/1s, but it really makes 2/2s. Skull Clamp is probably still good enough, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll put it in. We'll see what happens. Champion of Lambhold, though. Oh, this is a card for us. It's a 3-mana 1/1. Creatures with power less than its power can't block any of your creatures. So if it's a 5/5, your opponents can't block it, any of your creatures, unless they have at least 5 power. Also, whenever a creature comes into play on our side of the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 counter. It's also a 2/2 instead of a 1/1 because of our commander. Definitely putting Champion in. Dude, Champion of Lambhold also has an axe. It says it's from Innistrad. It's actually a Viking. It's just like a classic typo. These are all just Vikings. It's all Vikings all the way down. Mwahaha. Austere Command is another good piece of removal for us to consider. It's a little more expensive. It's 6 mana instead of 4, compared to something like Wrath of God, but it allows us to destroy creatures with CMC 4 or greater. Sadly, this will kill our commander, but it will kill none of our tokens, and it's a token deck. So this is pretty sweet. It's also got an angel on it. We'll just say that's a Valkyrie. Martial Coup. This is an X mana removal spell. You create X tokens. If X is 5 or more, you destroy all other creatures. So this refills our board, and it kills everything for us. It's also 11 cents, so it's easy include. So now it's looking here. We got 9 removal. That's pretty good. We could use some more draw, and then we're going to have to populate lands. And we're only at 60 cards. So let's go ahead and grab some lands and then see where we're at. All right, so I'm looking for lands in our commander's color identity that has the keyword search. So these are going to be lands that typically search for another land and put it into play, which is good for us because it's going to trigger additional landfalls. It is going to find random stuff like this bad river that we can't possibly use. It's more difficult to parse that out. What we could do is we could refine our search by saying like -0 island. But now what's going to happen is we're going to lose Misty Rainforest, which is a card we could have run because it searches for a forest. So we don't want to do that. We just kind of have to search. There's only 39. We'll just search through them. Blighted Woodland is a land that can get us 2 landfall triggers. You can spend 4 mana and sack it to search for 2 basics and put it into play. Blighted Woodland, you're okay in my book. You're coming on in. Fabled Passage, this is a fetch land. It goes in. We could run the other fetch lands. It's really just up to your budget, like how many of them you can afford to run. Fetch lands are any of these lands where you pay 1 life, sacrifice it, search your deck for one of them, put it into play. You could run all of the ones that say plains or forest, even if they say other stuff. So like Arid Mesa, you could run in this deck because you could search for the plains and you would never search for the mountains. And since it doesn't have the red mana symbol, it is technically legal to run Arid Mesa in any commander deck, regardless of whether or not they have mountains or plains. I think we will definitely run Windswept Heath. We're a landfall deck in these colors. We'll definitely run it. As far as the others go, I think I would just run the ones that have green, because green is the primary color for our deck. It's the one that gets us all of our ramp and gets all of our other things happening. We do need white later on, but if all of our fetch lands can search for a forest, we can always just search for a forest/plains in those situations to get our white mana. We also have a couple of green-white exclusive fetch lands. So there's Grasslands and Croatian Verge. Both of these are not... Grasslands is like the bad version of a fetch land. We won't consider it. Croatian Verge, though, reads very similarly to the other one, where you tap for 1, or you can pen 2 and sack it to search for a forest and a plains and put them on the battlefield tap. This is the cycle that I wish they had continued for the other colors. It is the only one. It is one of the few rewards we get for being a green-white landfall deck. We will take advantage of it. We will run Corrosion Verge. Very sweet card. Yeah, this is 2 mana for 2 lands. It's literally half the cost of Blighted Woodland, which we're going to run. And then Myriad Landscape, again, is 2 mana. Get 2 lands. They have to be basics. The ones from Corrosion Verge don't. You can get dual lands with Corrosion Verge. What? Ridiculous. Here we go. Here's all of the forests. Arctic Treeline. It's a snow land. We'll run that. Canopy Vista. It's a forest plains. It can come into play untapped under some circumstances. Savannah. Sorry, pardon me. Savannah. It's too hot in the Savannah for our Vikings. We won't be running Savannah. Also, it's like hundreds of dollars. We don't need to have that in here. Scattered Groves, Temple Garden. Those are our big ones. And then, of course, we have Dryad Arbor, which is that one we can search for with our Green Sun Zenith. Also, as we're looking at cool stuff to do, Amaria the Sky Ruin is a sweet card that, again, we don't see a lot of because white isn't fantastic in Commander. But this says, taps for 1 white, comes into play tapped. But at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 7 or more planes, you can return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. We can tutor this out a lot of ways. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the forest/plains lands, and we're a landfall deck. Amaria definitely goes in with our high land count and like high ramp ability. It's also, again, one of those weird rewards we get for being in these colors, doing what we're trying to do. Another solid one, which is something that you do in, I think, there's like a legacy deck that involves it. But because we're running, gosh, what's his name? Because we're running Knight of the Reliquary, we can search for any land. There are some lands that are very good that don't tap for mana. The best one is Mazavith. You can tap it to remove a attacking creature from combat, and it deals no damage. It also receives no damage. So if someone attacks you with like their commander and they're going to kill you, you can be like, nope, this doesn't work if they have Shroud or Hexproof. But it's a really solid card, and the fact that we can tutor it out is really nice. The other one that we would consider is Thawing Glaciers. I think that's what it's called. Glacial Chasm. Dang it. It's called Glacial Chasm. But it says your creatures can't attack, but in exchange, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Flavor Win, because it's snow-themed. Non-bow, because we want to attack with our creatures. Also, it's a card that causes you to be targeted, so we'll not run that card. Hit up that snow-covered plains. All right, let's populate this up a bit and kind of see where we're at. I think for a list like this, probably run like 38 lands or something. We will want to run more forests than plains because our forests enable us to search out the plains. So let's cut a couple of plains here. Puts us at 39. That's not bad. We're at 100 cards even. Honestly, this would probably be good to go. There's definitely some things I'm missing. So let me putter around a little bit and get back with anything I'm missing, and we'll take it from there. Also clean up these rows a little bit. Whoa, I'm back. All right, I'm back. I've cleaned up our piles a little bit. I went on a bit of a side tear and searched a bunch of cards and threw some in here, and then just about everything went in the baby board. But real quick, some stuff I did find that I thought we should include. If you just look at if you just look at token decks in general, you'll see that Idle Oblivion is well played. It's just tap, draw a card, activate this only if you created a token this turn. This card is fantastic with our commander. It's also only $1.50, easily goes in. Another one over here on the ramp side of things, Burgeoning. Whenever an opponent plays a land, we can play a land. This card is really pricey. If you can't afford it, obviously don't get it. But, you know, if you're just playing with Praxis or whatever, Burgeoning is awesome. It'll give us extra landfall triggers on our opponent's turns and help get some of those cards out of our hands. And then over here in the land area, I ended up finding just cards that had an activate cost with green and white and seeing what was in there. Gavany Township puts a counter on all of our creatures, so this is effectively 4 mana Anthem for whatever creatures were in play forever, which is really cool. Grove of the Guardian, we can tap our tokens and sacrifice this land to make an 8/8. It's very cute. It's not good. It's worth 21 cents, but it's a very cute card. Because a lot of our anthems are enchantments and people are probably going to be removing them to stop our tokens from being very powerful, we can use this to get them out of our graveyard and put them back into our deck and then play them again. That's why in our maybe board, if you're noticing over here, there's some stuff that does stuff with enchantments because I was seeing what synergy there was. And I think the best way to do it is just include it as a land. That way we're not really wasting a card slide on it. Also, this could be like, you know, it's Heliod's generosity. This could be like Odin's generosity. Like there's, you know, God's a god, right? But yeah, that's the list. It ends up being $800. Good lord. Well, $350 of it are our lands, so, you know. What else is so expensive here? Fortunately, we can sort this by full deck and then price. Land. Oh, it's $100 for these two enchantments. Dude, they gotta reprint this token doubling crap. Oh yeah, this is the other one I forgot to mention. I put in privilege position, which just gives everything we have hexproof. This is another reward for being green-white. We get to run this card. This card is super irritating for everyone else. Not for us, though. We have a privileged position. It's beneath us to worry about such things. And then Growing Rights of Ilmok. This card on the backside is Gaia's Cradle, which is like, at this point, $1,000 card. It's just a land that taps for 1 mana for every creature you control. This is an enchantment that turns into that. The requirement to transform it is to have 4 or more creatures at the end of your turn. Good thing our commander makes them whenever we play lands. This card definitely is going to see a lot of good use here. But yeah, that's the list. I'll post the deck list at the bottom like I usually do. I hope this was fun for you guys. Maybe you found some cool stuff. I don't know. I haven't made a landfall deck in a while. I've been making a lot of these tribal decks, and this kind of wound up being like a pseudo-human tribal deck, but I try to do it around a theme that I think is interesting. Also, I love landfall decks, and I love landfall decks that are using not blue and not, well, basically blue. Simic is so overplayed. I'm very tired of it because it's so good. Like, Simic Landfall. Like, I have 2 decks that are Simic Landfall, and they're very strong. But hopefully this, I'll throw it together. Hopefully this proves fun to play. And at the very least, you get to play Vikings. It's really cool. And this card's 10 cents. You can beat someone with a 10-cent commander. Like, you gotta feel good about yourself, right? Anyway, hope this was fun. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.